Imagine walking into a dealership today and, buying a remarkably spacious, brand new electric vehicle. Like, it's packed with premium tech, it boasts a flawless 5-star safety rating, and it gives you enough range to handle your entire week.
Right. Sounds ideal.
Now, imagine the dealer handing you the keys, and the final bill is, well, it's thousands less than what you'd pay for a cramped, used, gas-powered hatchback. You would probably think they made a mistake or, I don't know, that there was a massive catch.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it does sound like impossible math, but that impossible math is exactly what's happening right now on showroom floors.
Exactly. So if you're looking for a traditional, shiny, sugar-coated car review, you might want to look elsewhere. Because today, you and I are sitting down for a masterclass in global market disruption.
We really are.
We're looking at a huge stack of sources today, ranging from an in-depth UK RAC review to Australian EV news and European market updates. And our mission on this deep dive is to dissect exactly how one specific car, the 2026 MG4 Urban, is completely rewriting the rules of the electric vehicle price war.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
We're going to figure out how a car brand manages to offer you seemingly impossible interior space and high-end tech for a bargain basement price. And more importantly, we're going to uncover the hidden mechanisms like what they had to secretly take away behind the scenes to make that math actually work.
It really is the ultimate case study in ruthless value engineering. And, to understand why this matters to you right now, you have to look at the landscape we're operating in.
Yeah, set the scene for us.
Right. So we are in March 2026. We're dealing with global fuel crises, incredibly volatile prices at the pump, and just an absolute cage match for the entry-level EV market.
A total cage match.
Exactly. You have aggressive Chinese brands like BYD and European legacy brands like Renault locked in this brutal fight for dominance. Everyone is trying to build the definitive cheap electric car. And MG just walked into that cage and changed the game entirely.
Wait, hold on. Before we get into how they changed the game, we need to talk about the sleight of hand MG is pulling here.
Oh, the name game, yeah.
Right. Because to understand the Urban, we have to play a little game with the badge on the back. Back in 2022, MG released the original MG4 Electric. And if you dig into the automotive press from back then, that car was an absolute darling. It was universally praised.
Oh, critics loved it.
It had rear-wheel drive, it had a highly sophisticated 50.54 weight distribution, and it featured this radically thin 110mm battery they called the One Pack.
Right, and those aren't just buzzwords. Like, a 50.50 weight distribution means the car is balanced perfectly like a pendulum, making it incredibly agile.
Yeah.
And rear-wheel drive means the front wheels are only responsible for steering, while the back wheels push the car forward. It gives you a very pure, sporty driving dynamic. I mean, it was engineered specifically to be fun.
But fast forward to today, and we have the 2026 MG4 Urban. And here's where I get confused. Like, why would a brand intentionally risk their flagship car's reputation by secretly ripping out the guts that made it famous in the first place?
A bold move.
Because the Urban keeps the prestigious MG4 badge, but underneath, it is a completely different car.
It is a brilliant, if, slightly deceptive strategy.
It reminds me of the smartphone industry.
Okay.
Think about when Apple releases the iPhone SE.
Okay, yeah, good analogy.
They use an older, cheaper chassis, maybe a less advanced screen, but they slap the exact same premium Apple badge on the back. People buy it because of the brand equity, even though the hardware inside is budget tier. MG is essentially recasting their own sequel.
That's exactly what they're doing.
They took the MG4, ripped out the rear-wheel drive, and swapped it for a much cheaper front-wheel drive architecture. They even physically moved the charging port from the back of the car to the front just to accommodate this totally different powertrain layout.
And the mechanism driving that decision is a deliberate two-model strategy. You can see this playing out right now in European markets like Italy and Germany.
Oh, really? How's that working?
Well, in those countries, they're actually selling both cars side by side in the same dealership.
Wow.
Yeah, you have the classic, sporty, rear-wheel drive MG4 sitting right next to this new front-wheel drive MG4 Urban. By keeping the MG4 name on the Urban, they capitalize on all the prestige and the glowing reviews they've built up over the last 4 years.
She's geeky.
But by swapping out that complex rear drive architecture for a simpler front-wheel drive setup, they drastically slash their assembly time and manufacturing costs. Front-wheel drive is just inherently cheaper and easier to package on a factory line.
And man, consider the math here, because the cost cutting is honestly staggering when you look at the global numbers we have in front of us.
It really is.
In the UK, this car starts at just $21,995, And that includes MG stepping in to match a 1,500-pound government grant.
Which is wild.
In Australia, it's rolling out at $31,990 drive-away. That officially makes it the cheapest EV in the entire country, completely undercutting the BYD Dolphin.
Yeah, that's a huge deal down there.
And in Austria, they're launching it at an incredibly aggressive €19,990 with incentives. So I have to push back here. How on earth is MG actually making a profit at these prices while European legacy brands are bleeding money trying to compete?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the answer is vertical integration and massive economies of scale.
Okay, break that down for us.
Sure. So MG is owned by SAI Motor, which is an absolute juggernaut of a conglomerate in China. They don't just buy parts from suppliers. In many cases, they own the entire supply chain.
Right.
Imagine you own the raw materials, the battery manufacturing plant, the software development firm, and the shipping logistics. That is the reality for SAI.
So they aren't just buying components off the shelf, they own the shelf.
Exactly. They own the whole store. Plus, they also benefit from state backing in China, which subsidizes a lot of that heavy industrial infrastructure. But beyond just saving money, this pricing is a strategic weapon.
How so?
SAS is deliberately squeezing their own profit margins down to the absolute bone on the MG4 Urban to build an impenetrable moat.
To keep others out.
Right. They want to block out aggressive new competitors entering the market, like Chery and Geely, while simultaneously keeping legacy cars, like the new Renault 5 E-Tech, constantly on the defensive. They're willing to take a tiny profit per car if it means owning the market share.
It's a total war of attrition. But of course, you cannot just slash the price of a sophisticated machine by thousands of dollars without making some serious mechanical compromises.
You really can't.
You mentioned value engineering earlier. Let's dig into what the buyer's actually giving up here, because to hit that price point, MG is sacrificing fun for the everyday.
Which is a fundamental shift from the original car.
Right. The original MG4 had what's called a complex 5-link rear suspension. For anyone who isn't a gearhead, think of a 5-link suspension as a robotic hand with 5 individual fingers holding the wheel to the road.
That's a great way to picture it.
It allows the wheel to move up and down over bumps while staying perfectly flat and grip to the pavement around tight corners. It's expensive, it's heavy, and it feels incredibly agile. But the new Urban throws that out.
Yeah, it uses a much simpler, cheaper suspension setup. And our sources from the RAC review note the direct consequences of this. It feels a bit fidgety over bumps, you hear more wind and road noise penetrating the cabin on the highway, and the acceleration is, well, it's modest.
Modest is a nice way to say it.
Yeah, it does 0 to 62 miles per hour in about 9.5 seconds.
Which, in the electric vehicle world, is practically glacial.
Exactly. A Renault 5 or a Ford Puma Jenny is going to feel significantly more sprightly. They'll isolate you from the road surface far better. The RAC review even notes that the Urban's electric motor has a noticeable audible whine when you accelerate.
Oof.
Yeah, it lacks that silent magic carpet feel that premium EVs deliver.
But I want to pause and challenge that entire framework, because automotive reviewers are obsessed with steering feel and cornering dynamics, because they test cars on tracks and winding mountain roads.
Sure, they have a specific lens.
But let's apply this to the real world.
Huh.
If you were doing the morning school run, or you're stuck in gridlock traffic trying to get to a dental appointment, or you're picking up a week's worth of groceries, do you actually care about isolating road surface?
Most people don't.
Right. Does a 0 to 60 time of 9.5 seconds really matter when the speed limit in your neighborhood is 25?
And that reality check is exactly the bet MG is making. They're betting that the average consumer, when forced to choose, prioritizes pure practicality over performance. Which brings us to the most crucial aspect of the Urban.
The space.
The space equation. This is where this car completely dominates the competition. Despite being the cheapest option, it is physically massive for its class.
It really is big.
It's 4,395 millimeters long and 1,549 millimeters tall. To put that in perspective, you're getting a car almost the size of a Vauxhall Astra Electric or a Nissan Leaf, but paying significantly less.
The interior packaging numbers are wild. Because they moved to that front-wheel drive architecture, they freed up a massive amount of cabin space. Like, it has a completely flat floor in the back.
Which is huge for passengers.
Yeah, that means you can actually fit 3 average-sized adults back there for a road trip without the person in the middle having to straddle a transmission tunnel. Try doing that in the back of a Renault 5. It is physically impossible. Your knees would be against your chin.
Precisely. The Renault 5 is incredibly charming. It has fantastic retro design and premium interior materials, but it is fundamentally cramped. The MG4 Urban is playing in a different league entirely when it comes to sheer volume.
Let's talk about the boot space, too.
Oh, yeah. Look at the boot. They quote a cavernous 577 liters of capacity if you pack it to the roof. Even if you just measure under the parcel shelf, it's 382 liters, plus another 98 liters of hidden storage underneath the floorboards.
That's massive.
It doesn't just dwarf the Renault 5, the Urban actually competes with small SUVs like the Vauxhall Frontera or the Citroën EC3 Aircross.
So it's not actually a hatchback. It's essentially a small SUV disguised as a budget hatchback.
Pretty much.
But here is where the narrative usually falls apart. Because usually, when a car is this cheap and this physically large, the interior feels like a penalty box.
Oh, totally. You expect scratchy plastics, manual roll-up windows, and an AM radio.
Exactly. But the Urban is packed with an absurd amount of hidden value. Let's look at the uncompromising tech they've thrown in as standard equipment. Even on the absolute base model, the cheapest one you can drive off the lot, you get a 12.8-inch touchscreen, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and adaptive cruise control.
Don't forget the heat pump.
Oh, right, and it comes standard with a heat pump.
We really need to break down why that last point is so significant.
Go for it.
A heat pump is a vital piece of engineering for an electric vehicle, especially if you live in a climate with cold winters. Most cheap EVs use what's called a resistive heater. Think of a resistive heater like a giant toaster hidden in the dashboard. It runs an electrical current through a wire to generate heat.
Sounds inefficient.
It is. It works, but it demands massive amounts of energy, which drains your battery and kills your range in the winter. A heat pump, on the other hand, works like a reverse refrigerator.
Oh.
It extracts ambient thermal energy from the outside air, compresses it, and uses that to warm the cabin. It is vastly more energy efficient. Premium EV brands like Tesla or Audi will often make you pay thousands of dollars extra as an option to add a heat pump.
And MG just throws it in.
Yep. The fact that MG includes it as standard equipment on a 21,000-pound budget car is a massive structural advantage.
It's a huge hidden savings for the buyer that pays dividends every winter. And then there's the safety aspect. When you buy a budget car, you usually assume you're compromising on safety. It's the unspoken trade-off.
But not here.
Right. The Urban scored a full 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating. And Euro NCAP isn't just about crashing cars into walls anymore. It's heavily focused on active collision avoidance.
It's just hard to ace.
Yeah, the much-hyped Renault 5, right, only managed 4 stars. The Urban comes standard with rear cross-traffic alert, automatic emergency braking, and even safe door exit alerts, which uses radar to warn you if you're about to open your door into the path of a passing cyclist.
It is an incredibly aggressive market strategy. They're giving you the interior space of a larger vehicle, the active safety systems of a premium vehicle, and the price tag of a budget vehicle.
But to offer that kind of space and tech at that price point, the math demands a sacrifice somewhere else. And that sacrifice happens under the floorboards in the battery chemistry.
Great equalizer.
Yeah, this is usually the deal breaker for people making the jump to electric. Let's break down the range. You have 2 battery options here. There's the smaller 41.9 or 43 kilowatt-hour pack, depending on your local market, which gives you roughly 200 miles or 316 kilometers of range.
Okay.
Then there's the long-range version with a 52.8 or 54 kilowatt-hour pack, pushing you to about 258 miles or 405 kilometers.
And we have to specify the chemistry here because it explains everything about this car. These are LFP batteries, lithium iron phosphate.
Right.
Premium cars, including the older rear-wheel drive MG4, typically use NMC batteries, nickel manganese cobalt. NMC batteries are very energy-dense and relatively lightweight, but they rely on expensive, ethically complicated heavy metals.
So LFP is the cheaper alternative.
Exactly. LFP batteries, which the Urban uses, are heavier and less energy-dense, meaning they take up more physical space to provide the same range. However, they are significantly cheaper to mass-produce, they're incredibly durable, and crucially, they tolerate being charged to 100% on a daily basis, much better than NMC batteries, which degrade if you constantly top them off.
That durability is great for the everyday driver. But the DC fast charging speeds look, well, on paper they look pretty unimpressive.
Yeah, they do.
In the UK, the Urban maxes out at 82 to 87 kilowatts of charging speed, though the Australian sources note it can hit 150 kilowatts over there depending on the grid. Still, 82 kilowatts sounds sluggish when you constantly hear about premium cars charging at 250 or 350 kilowatts.
It does sound low, but this requires a complete mental shift in how we interpret EV charging data. It's a great reminder that EV charging isn't just about the speed of the hose, it's about the size of the bucket.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, you have to look at the overall capacity of the battery pack, not just the peak charging speed. Because the Urban's battery pack is relatively small, that 43 kilowatt hour bucket pushing 82 kilowatts from the hose still means you can charge from 10% to 80% in just 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
A slower hose filling a much smaller bucket still gets you back on the highway in the exact same amount of time as a premium car with a massive battery. In fact, 30 minutes is actually a few minutes faster than the Renault 5 takes to charge.
That's crazy.
So while the peak headline number is lower, the actual time you spend standing around drinking a coffee at the charging station is completely competitive.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. The math of the battery size completely neutralizes the lower charging speed. But because that LFP chemistry inherently creates a ceiling on performance and charging speeds, it explains why MG is so desperately rushing their next massive technological leap.
Oh, yes.
And this is the tease in the European market updates that we absolutely cannot ignore.
Hmm.
MG has quietly announced that by the end of 2026, they are bringing a semi-solid state battery variant to Europe.
And that is the holy grail of current automotive engineering.
Really? Why is that?
Well, traditional lithium-ion batteries, including LFP, use a liquid electrolyte to move ions back and forth between the anode and cathode. It works, but that liquid is flammable, takes up space, and limits how fast you can push energy through it.
Okay.
Semi-solid-state batteries replace a large portion of that liquid electrolyte with a solid conductive material like a specialized polymer or ceramic matrix.
Which fundamentally changes the physics of the battery.
Exactly. Less liquid means it's inherently safer and far less prone to overheating. But more importantly, a solid structure allows you to pack the energy much tighter. It promises significantly higher energy density.
Meaning you get vastly more range in the exact same physical space.
Yes, and because it manages heat better, it allows for incredibly fast charging times. If MG can bring semi-solid state technology to the European market at an accessible, budget-friendly price point within the next year, it won't just disrupt the entry-level market, it'll send absolute shockwaves through the premium segment as well.
I bet.
Because why buy a 50,000-pound luxury EV if a 25,000-pound MUG can charge faster and drive further?
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening right now, trying to make sense of this wild, rapidly shifting automotive landscape?
It's a lot to take in.
It is. If there's one major takeaway from this deep dive into the numbers and the engineering, it is this. The 2026 MG4 Urban is not a car for driving purists. It isn't going to thrill you on a winding mountain road, and it isn't going to pin you back in your seat when a traffic light turns green.
Definitely not.
But it is a hyper-rational, brilliantly calculated, space-maximizing appliance. It is designed to look at the massive financial barriers keeping everyday families out of electric vehicles and completely obliterate them. Between the massive interior space, the high-end standard tech, the safety ratings, and the unbelievable price, it makes the decision to go electric a complete no-brainer for your wallet.
It absolutely does. But analyzing this car leaves us with a rather profound, almost philosophical question to ponder.
What's that?
If the winning formula for the future of the automotive industry is to intentionally strip away the driving soul of a car, simplifying the suspension, moving to front-wheel drive, and entirely ignoring steering feels, all in favor of maximum interior volume, cheap LFP batteries, and massive touchscreens. Are cars just becoming the new white goods? Are we actively transitioning to a world where buying a vehicle is an entirely emotional-free utilitarian decision, exactly like buying a refrigerator or a washing machine? And if so, what does that mean for car culture moving forward?
That is an incredibly provocative thought to end on. Because like you said, you don't form an emotional bond with your refrigerator, no matter how much hidden storage space it has inside.
No, you really don't.
Before we wrap up, I want to take a second to speak directly to you, the listener. We know you have a drive to figure out how the world really works, and right now, the automotive world is being flipped on its head at record speed. Thank you, genuinely. Thanks for bringing your curiosity and joining us in the deep end today. We know there's an overwhelming amount of noise and spin out there right now, and the fact that you trust us to help cut through it and unpack these global shifts means the world to us. Remember, we aren't just looking at the nuts and bolts of a single car here. We're watching an entire century-old industry get rewritten in real time. Keep questioning the market. Keep looking for the hidden value behind the headlines, and we will be right here waiting for you next time.